But
Yeah. So
without further ado, yeah, here we are. So we have our first player representing Ireland, Shane Whelan. So he won. He went in the Stuttgart Regional 6-3, as well as the. You'll have to forgive my pronunciation of Gdansk Regional and the Barcelona Special, and was also a World Cup competitor in 2023. And he brought this time Rillaboom, Salamence, Primarina, Sneasler, Electabuzz, and King Gambit. So for me, what stands out here is that Salamence carrying that choice spec, Marcus.
yeah, Shane definitely a very solid player, supporting Ireland also in previous World Cups. Yeah, I think that Salamence might actually be something that we've seen at the beginning of the season. I remember in Dortmund, I believe. Desu, Davide Corneta, maybe used the exact same same 6 Pokemon to finish in the top 8 of that tournament. Also, I think that team included a choice spec Salamence. Since then, yeah, as you were saying, it kind of fell out of fashion, and yeah, players have really prioritized other dragon types, like for example Archaludon, and also of course Dragonite, which has picked up so much popularity since the very beginning of the format. But yeah, who knows? Maybe Salamence still is a solid pick. With Intimidate, it is, yeah, still a good Pokemon. It can switch into a lot of common Pokemon like Rillaboom and Incineroar maybe. And also, of course, Sneasler is one of those targets for Intimidate. As for the rest of the team, I would say it's very solid, right? Like that's a team composition we've seen quite a bit in this format already.
Yeah, and with that Electabuzz support, it just keeps Pokemon such as the King Gambit and Primarina safe from strong single attacks. And it could even give some protection to that Sneasler when it just snowballs the game out of proportion. And this Salamence, it looks like it's just really there to try and dish out large quantities in terms of damage. So we'll have to wait and see how this Salamence fares, considering that it's not exactly one of the most popular used Pokemon at present.
Absolutely. And then looking over on their opponent's side, Leo will be coming in with a team that we've also seen before. I believe it's the same 6 Pokemon that Carson Confer recently used to win the Sacramento Regional Championships. I'm not spotting any differences here, so maybe definitely took some inspiration here from that team, including some interesting choices like the Terra Fairy on Talonflame, which of course is usually used against that Dragonite we were talking about, but maybe could also come in handy against a choice spec Salamence. And then, of course, this team is really all around that Ursaluna Blood Moon, supporting it with the Tailwind, supporting it with Follow Me, with Fake Out. And yeah, it's in my opinion, one of the strongest teams that we're currently having in this format. And yeah, I'm eager to see how this team, which is, so let's say modern, can fare against a team that maybe is not outdated, but maybe a little bit more like old school in terms of, when it was introduced in the format. So the Salamence definitely has been around for a little bit longer, but this team composition is really, I think, on top of everyone's mind when it comes to strong teams in the current format.
Right, and it's also worth noting that on the side of Leo, he does not have any Pokemon that has something to against Intimidate, like the Defiant on the King Gambit. So that Salamence's Intimidate will come in probably useful against the Talonflame, Incineroar, and Sneasler. And it might matter in this game, as we'll also see some terrain wars with the Indeedee versus Rillaboom. And, both sides carrying that Electabuzz, so let's see if they'll just be using Follow Me in front of one another. As we get into game number 1, Leo sends out his Talonflame and Ursaluna, whereas Shane sends out their Electabuzz and Primarina. So, Marcus, given this board state, what do you think we can expect from right now?
Yeah, that Talonflame Ursaluna lead is so threatening, because right away, Leo could go for a Tailwind and a very powerful attack. This could be either the Terra Normal, a Hyper Voice, or maybe an Earth Power against the King Gambit, or even just a Blood Moon. And I think Shane is already under a lot of pressure here on the very first turn. One thing that is interesting, and that we're also seeing him hover over here, is that Primarina is actually a Terra Water. That's not a Terra we're seeing very often, but that is, of course, very useful in this spot, because, yeah, both Pokemon over on Leo's side are weak to that move. So if you can get off a very powerful Terra-boosted Hyper Voice, that could be big. But I would also expect a Terra type to come out of Leo's Ursaluna to get rid of that Water type weakness.
Exactly, as we see here, the Primarina is dedicating everything into all-out offense, going for the Terra Water and most likely the Terra Hyper for the Terra Hyper Voice. As we see, as you just predicted, Leo using his own Terastallization onto the Ursaluna to get rid of that ground type so that they don't possibly get one-hit KO'd by the Primarina. And we just see the Follow Me from Electabuzz trying to protect the Primarina with the Talonflame, setting up the Tailwind for Leo. And so it's probably going to be, it's an Earth Power onto the Electabuzz and gets one shot!
Wow, yeah, that's a clear one-hit KO. Maybe afraid of a prediction of this move, and maybe Electro Web could have been something that also could have come out of that Electabuzz. But let's see, that Hyper Voice is so powerful, knocking out that Talonflame right away, and also doing a ton of damage to that Ursaluna.
Right, but the problem now is Tailwind is set up for Leo, and they get a free switch because their Talonflame just got knocked out. So right now on the side of Shane, I think it's going to be a challenge of whether will you be able to take down that already majorly chipped Ursaluna before it can try and get rid of your team using, just spamming those Life Orb supported Hyper Voices, supported again by the Terra Normal. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and Leo's team definitely has the tools to support this Ursaluna because, they could be going into Incineroar for a round of Intimidate as well as Fake Out Pressure. Then also maybe there's the Indeedee waiting in the back to override the terrain and get an advantage against that Rillaboom. It's Sneasler coming in. I think that's a smart choice for Leo and indicates to me that maybe there is that Indeedee male waiting in the back, and that could be a very, very strong switch in now to override the grassy terrain, block any incoming priority moves like Fake Out or Grassy Glide, and then you can go from there. As you said, Ursaluna still supported, still under Tailwind, faster than anything that Shane has at this point, and can do a ton of damage with Hyper Voice or Blood Moon. I don't think Hyper Voice would be enough to knock out the Primarina, and also definitely will not knock out the Rillaboom. So Leo would need to target with the Blood Moon maybe if they wanted to get a KO this turn. So I think, that's where the ambiguity is here in this turn.
Yeah, and it's entirely possible that Sneasler just goes for that Rillaboom, considering that if we do see the Indeedee switch in, the Sneasler Psychic Seed will activate. But we don't see that, we just see a safe protect onto the Ursaluna, and Rillaboom just throwing out its Fake Out onto it. So, just Leo probably wanting to scout out the moves, and Direct Claw going out onto the Rillaboom, and it's down to 15 health, and we don't see any status ailments, so Rillaboom hangs around for one extra turn as the Primarina throws out its Terra-boosted Hyper Voice.
Yeah, no Indeedee switch in, and I wonder if Indeedee is even in the back then for Leo, because I thought it was maybe a quite straightforward play with very little downside, but Leo is saying, well, you know what, I think you're going after the Ursaluna this turn, so if my Sneasler can get off a lot of damage on that Rillaboom, then it will be in range of Hyper Voice. And Rillaboom definitely was one of those Pokemon that were tough to deal with for Leo's team. But now with that Direct Claw, now it's easy for Ursaluna to get the knockout there. But now, once again, the question is, do you try and predict what Leo might have in the back and go for it? Because if it's not the Indeedee, then Grassy Glide would be a big move here. It could also be the Incineroar, I guess. Then you have to worry a little bit about Intimidate. But I think this might be a key turn here. Whether Shane can call the moves of Leo or not.
Yeah, and we see the Sneasler switching out on 2-0. It is indeed the Indeedee. So probably just waiting out to see if Shane would just burn the Fake Out and maybe creating some mind games there, establishing that I might have not brought the Indeedee, but indeed it did come out here as we see the Ursaluna committing to the Blood Moon onto the Protect. Oh, wow!
That's a big protect, but the Rillaboom went to Grassy Glide, and without the boost of the terrain and with the weakness gone, Ursaluna, thanks to the Terastallization, it is not enough to pick up the KO there. If that was Woodhammer, that could have been a totally different story, but now, as it is, the Ursaluna is still on the field, still very strong there. Of course, now we only have one more turn left of Tailwind, but Primarina just protected. Rillaboom does not have Protect, So Leo might just be able to get a double knockout here with Expanding Force and Hyper Voice probably. I mean, Blood Moon was just used, and that Primarina has the Citrus Berry, so you have to wonder if that combination of moves will be enough for the KO, and this is what it might come down to at this point.
Right, and the Rillaboom is switching out, considering the board state. You probably want to preserve it for the late game fake out, and Sneasler already carrying that Focus Sash. So we see the Expanding Force hitting so hard onto the
Citrus Berry. Yeah, Citrus Berry not activated.
Outside.
And that will be a powerful Hyper Voice.
Oh no! Yeah, that Expanding Force just hit for the right amount, stopping before the Citrus Berry could take effect for that Primarina. So things not looking too good for Shane in this game 1. And I think at this point you'd have to try and figure out where you went wrong, and think about game 2, since this is looking too tall of a task for Rillaboom alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I like the play that Shane was trying to go for there, trying to go for the switch out, just hope that your Primarina somehow makes it through the turn, and then you could have played it there from there with the fake out support provided by the Rillaboom. But yeah, as it stands, it's just the sole Rillaboom, and yeah, as you were calling out, probably not enough to win this battle. And it's about thinking about game 2. Leo, I think, made some very good decisions here this game. Preserving the Indeedee switch-in for the next turn, and then this is the turn where Shane went for the Grassy Glide, and that was just not strong enough to get the knockout on the Ursaluna. That Ursaluna has been on the field since turn 1, and that's bad news, because usually Ursaluna, if it's on the field, it's dishing out massive damage, and I think, that was the key thing here that led Leo to win this first game. It's just the Ursaluna is just so strong. And Shane didn't find a way to deal with it in this game.
Exactly, and you did mention something earlier with regards to that turn where the Ursaluna went for the Blood Moon and the Primarina protected. I think the Grassy Glide was not the best play to have done there. It should have been the Wood Hammer, as you said, since you're already playing under the assumption that the Indeedee could be in the back. And so your damage would be mitigated, considering that the terrain would be lost. So you might as well throw out that Wood Hammer to try and deal as much damage as possible. And because you're already holding an Assault Vest, so more often than not, you will be able to tank one of the hits from the Ursaluna, even if it did target the Rillaboom. So I feel like that was the defining turn that shifted the tides in favor of Leo.
Yeah, maybe Shane at that point was thinking, oh well, I'm so far behind anyway, I just have to hope that my opponent did not bring the Indeedee, that maybe it is the Electabuzz, and that maybe the Grassy Glide can go through, but I wonder which kind of adaptations both players will try and make going into the second game. I feel like Leo doesn't really need to switch too much up. I think the game plan relying on Ursaluna Blood Moon, I mean, that is the central piece of the team, but it really showed that, you can go with that game plan and you can really run away with the game. So I don't think there's any reason for Leo to switch things up in a major way. Over on the other side, though, for Shane, I think Rillaboom is the key Pokemon on his side, because that is the Pokemon, as you were calling out, that can take a hit from the Ursaluna Blood Moon and that can also strike back with a strong Wood Hammer. But yeah, with the terrain, with potentially Incineroar and definitely with Talonflame and Sneasler, it is hard to get Rillaboom into the position. So I wonder how Shane will approach the second game, though.
Exactly, and I think that is the key point why the Rillaboom is having such a difficult time. It's that there is a Talonflame on the other side, so it's all about timing on when you can bring it in and be able to try and assist in taking down that Ursaluna, which, as we've seen with Tailwind, can be quite a problem, as we see here again, that Talonflame and Ursaluna taking the field against the same leads of the Electabuzz and the Primarina. So the question is, will Shane learn from what happened in game 1, where they just freely let the Tailwind go up and let Electabuzz go down from a Life Orb boosted Earth Power? Or, will they try to preserve more of that resource in that Electabuzz for this game?
Yeah, I think going for Follow Me is it's pretty important here on this first turn, just because there could be this Terra Normal Blood Moon going into the Primarina. I think the decision that Shane has to make here is whether or not to terrestrialize the Primarina. We saw in the previous game, Ursaluna on the other side very likely to go for a terrestrialization of its own to get rid of that weakness to water-type attacks. And with the Terra boost, Hyper Voice did knock out the Talonflame, but maybe there is a case where actually you don't want the Talonflame to get knocked out. Maybe without the Terra boost, and if it's a bulky Talonflame, maybe that can take the attack. But in the end, Shane decides, okay, you know what, I'm just going to make the same play as in game 1. Maybe Shane feels like, okay, I know where I went wrong, and I know how to play better, but the first turn, I was happy with how that went.
Right, and we see the same commitment to using their terrestrialization on both sides, so it's a matter of, did they go for the same moves? Well, Electabuzz is showing just that, using Follow Me again. And we see Talonflame also using Tailwind. So will we see an Earth power from that Ursaluna this time around? But we don't. We see a Hyper Voice. So, just throwing out some spread damage, rendering that Follow Me useless. However, the Citrus Berry does proc this time, unlike in the previous game for Primarina. And now we just have to wait and see what the Primarina goes for. But most likely that Hyper Voice again, as we do see now.
Yeah, and I really like that decision for Leo. I think the only downside could have been like a potential Protect coming out or maybe Electro Web. Yeah, catching both Pokemon there with that really powerful Hyper Voice means that they might both be in range of another one. And also Shane does not get any switches here into the Rillaboom to threaten the Fake Out or anything like that. I have to wonder, with the Primarina, with the Citrus Berry, it looked like maybe it might be a damage roll. But now that Ursaluna over on Leo's side also has that Sneasler to support its efforts, and of course Hyper Voice and Direct Claw, for example, would easily knock out both Pokemon here. And once again, yeah, it's a very scary spot to be in, because yeah, what do you do in this point? I mean, Electabuzz, it's just in range of another Hyper Voice, and yeah, even if you predict Hyper Voice and Direct Claw coming out from Leo, I just wonder, what can you even do against that? I mean, you probably want to protect one of your Pokemon and kind of sacrifice the other. But then which of the two is more useful at this point? Is it Electabuzz or is it the Primarina? Looks like Shane decided that, yeah, you know what, Primarina, it has my terrestrialization. I need to keep that Pokemon around, and Electabuzz, well, you can go down this turn.
Yeah, as we do see here, using the Follow Me with the Protect. And, just trying to get rid of it. Burn another turn of Tailwind, trying to get a free switch in, considering that, Ursaluna behind the Tailwind is already proving too much for Shane, as, he can't afford to just lose 2 Pokemon immediately, otherwise he'd lose grasp of the entire match here. So the question now is, will this Rillaboom, which is most likely going to be coming in right now, be able to bring forth some way for Shane to be able to tug back the rope of this match, possibly with a well-timed fake out or a prediction from a Protect on that Ursaluna. But things are looking quite difficult, as I think we still have 2 turns left of Tailwind on the field.
Yeah, I think you definitely need to make a prediction this following turn, and either go for a fake out or you predict the Indeedee to switch in. As I said before, the Primarina, it might be in Hyper Voice KO range, but it might also be a damage roll, so that is something that both players also have to factor in. Looks like the previous turn, Leo decided to go for the Blood Moon, actually, instead of the Hyper Voice, so he was not sure either and just wanted to make sure. But that also means, of course, now, yeah, Blood Moon was used the previous turn. So, Grassy Glide could also be an option, I guess, but if the Indeedee is switching in, then it just won't work. So you really have to make a call here. And this, yeah, could be the deciding turn of the battle, unless Leo, once again, just will protect the Ursaluna and attack with Sneasler. Of course, that is also an option available.
Right, and, as you did mention, we could probably see the same mistake arise, and throwing out the committed Grassy Glide when the Indeedee would just come in to mitigate the damage. And as we all know, Ursaluna can take quite a few physical hits, as we see the safe Protect onto the Ursaluna.
Okay, so, no fake out coming out. Actually, it's the Dire Claw coming into the Rillaboom once again. Let's see if it's a status condition this time. No, and it's the high horsepower calling that there will not be an attack from the Ursaluna and getting the knockout right there.
Yeah, that was crucial right now, considering that we only have one more turn of Tailwind now. So it's very much possible for Shane to try and still grab this match back. And that prediction, as we both mentioned, was crucial. This is what he was waiting for and what he needed most. As we see an Electabuzz.
Wow, okay, now that is very interesting. Electabuzz and Ursaluna, of course, that is such a scary combination because of, Electroweb. That can also be used as a form of speed control even after the Tailwind is gone. But it also means no Indeedee in the battle this time, so Grassy Glide's still available as a priority move, boosted by the terrain here. I think you want to protect the Primarina this turn, definitely. And maybe you just go for a Grassy Glide, just for a little bit of chip damage. And then you have a board with Sneasler and Primarina, where if Primarina outspeeds that Ursaluna, it would be great. But as this Ursaluna was always in Tailwind, we didn't really get to see that interaction yet. But that would be very important to know for Shane, whether this Primarina is actually faster than the Ursaluna outside of Tailwind or not.
Yeah, and we see the Grassy Glide, as you just mentioned, and the Safe Protect onto the Primarina, followed by the Electabuzz throwing out the Electroweb. And I feel like right now, it's a question of, will this Rillaboom go down this turn for the free switch, or will Leo be able to just, keep this Rillaboom here in an awkward situation? As we see the normal attack coming out from the Ursaluna in the form of that Hyper Voice, getting rid of Rillaboom. So it's down to the wire as both players only have the remaining 2 Pokemon on the board right now.
Yeah, last 2 Pokemon remaining for both sides, but as we see some more grassy terrain recovery now, Tailwind is over, and that Sneasler still has the Focus Sash intact, so some well-timed close combats or fake-out Hyper Voice, depending on whether that Primarina is faster, but we see Shane lock in very, very quickly, so that tells to me that he is confident that the Primarina might be faster than the Ursaluna Blood Moon over on Leo's side.
Yeah, and you're always guaranteed to have confidence in your Sneasler, considering it is a very fast Pokemon. As we just see the safe double protect on the side of Leo, trying to scout out, I want to see what Shane is thinking here, and also to try and block out any mishaps from a well-timed fake out. So both players just, poking at each other, trying to see what the other is thinking of. And I'm sure that this is yet another turn of recovery for the Primarina, keeping itself a bit more healthy, trying to tank maybe one more possible Hyper Voice. But at this point, I think so late in the game, it's not gonna matter as much, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, now of course, one question could be, does Leo try and attempt a double protect on the Ursaluna? Because you could try and go for double protect and Electroweb, and then if Electabuzz is faster than the Sneasler, you can next turn go for another Electroweb and Hyper Voice to potentially finish off this game. I don't really know if there is a way to play around that for Shane, because Close Combat should not be able to get rid of that Electabuzz, but actually no Protect coming out, and that Ursaluna will just go down to the Close Combat right there.
Oh, wow. What a gamble on the side of Leo, not going for the safe, follow me. Considering that there is a Sneasler on the board that you can't compete with in terms of speed. So Sneasler coming in clutch here as we see the Electroweb from that Electabuzz. But, at this point, it's pretty much over, since this Sneasler and the Primarina can just throw out attack after attack and just gang up on that Electabuzz. And right now, I think on the side of Leo, the board has been switched, that where he's probably going to be the one thinking now of, okay, where did I go wrong? And what can I do right for Game 3, where I succeeded in Game 1?
Yeah, of course, now we get confirmation that Electabuzz is faster than the Sneasler, but will fail to connect with this Electroweb. Doesn't really matter at this point. But as you were saying, with Shane now tying up the series 1-1, the ball is kind of back in the court of Leo, because Shane showed that he is confident in the Pokemon choices that he brought to this battle. But Leo will maybe have to make a switch up here. He tried to go with the Electabuzz in this game, but I just have to think maybe it's not the right call, because that Indeedee just proved to be so crucial in the first game, providing support with the Psychic Terrain, shutting down any fake out plays, any Grassy Glide priority moves, and then also Expanding Force, of course, is a very powerful tool. there's not really anything over on Shane's side that wants to take those expanding forces in Psychic Terrain. As King Gambit is traditionally, it's not that great of a choice in a matchup like this. But I mean, who knows? Maybe he was expecting the King Gambit switch up and try to prepare for that with the Electabuzz. But yeah, in the end, either way, the series is tied up 1-1, and we are going into Game 3.
Exactly, and I think one major thing, if we were to look back onto that game 2, was that turn where Shane predicted the protect onto the Ursaluna and just doubled in onto the second slot on the side of Leo. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. And I completely agree with the selection of the Electabuzz. It just didn't match what Leo had in game 1, where they took advantage of the tailwind and just went out for full offense. But we're game 3 is ready, so let's just head on right in and see what is the final adjustment for these two players. It's winner takes all at this point.
Yeah, so important, of course. We are here in the top 8 of the World Cup, and both players, once again, trusting the same leads. It's Talonflame and Ursaluna over on Leo's side, and that Electabuzz Primarina for Shane.
Right, so it's just the same leads all 3 games, but it's a matter of what is the final call for these two players to make in this Game 3 of the top 8 series here at the Victory Road World Cup. Will Shane be able to, preserve this Electabuzz past turn 1, unlike in game number 1? And will Leo just go for the safe, tailwind and all-out offense as he always did? But the question is, what kind of offense will he be going for? Will he be going for the spread damage in that Hyper Voice boosted by the Terra Normal? Or will they just go straight up for that Earth Power, getting rid of the Electabuzz support on the side of Shade?
Yeah, and of course, when playing for your region, when playing a game like this, do you really want to take big risks? And Shane, it looks like, does not want to take the big risk. Once again, we'll go for the same play, Follow Me and Terra Water Hyper Voice. But I think there would have been an opportunity for Shane maybe to go for Protect with the Electabuzz, as that would cover every play from Leo except the Terra Normal Blood Moon into the Primarina. But it's tough to make choices like this when playing for yourself, but when playing, of course, for your team, it's even tougher sometimes.
Exactly. I mean, when you're playing at this high of a level and at the late in the stage of a big tournament,
and it's hard to Blood Moon.
Oh wow! So I guess that was right. A very good call here for the Follow Me, since it could have gone to the Primarina. But if it was a Protect, that would have preserved it an additional turn.
Yeah, so we will go into a very similar spot like we were in the very first game, where now this Primarina gets off this boosted Hyper Voice, will knock out the Talonflame and do a ton of damage to the Ursaluna. But now, of course, maybe the situation will change up a little bit, because now both players, as we see the Pokemon in the back for Shane, are once again the Rillaboom and the Sneasler, and I think it's correct here in this point. At this point, you need the terrain support and you need the Fake Out. But will Leo once again switch in that Sneasler in this spot? Or, I mean, we could also maybe see an Incineroar. If Rillaboom is coming in, then Incineroar would be a great choice. But nope, it looks like once again it's the Sneasler on Leo's side. But it's actually Shane who is switching things up a bit. And Sneasler will be coming in for Shane.
Yeah, and right now it's a really big problem for Leo, because that Ursaluna went for the Blood Moon. So it's a sitting duck right here on the board right now with regards to that damage output, and it can only go for Earth Power or Hyper Voice. And as we know here, it's quite a dangerous game, since that Sneasler on the side of Shane is holding the Focus Sash. So if for some reason it does get knocked down to that low health, it could possibly overturn against the Ursaluna. But it's very unlikely, considering that Sneasler on the other side doesn't carry any move that could drop it down to that regard. So it's a question of, will Primarina just protect itself here, and will Leo be able to predict something like that?
It's a tough decision to make. No Fake Out over, of course, on Leo's Sneasler. And yeah, just to scout out the Fake Out turn, a double Protect. And I think Shane actually gets bailed here a little bit, because Shane went for close combat into that Ursaluna, really wanted to get rid of that Pokemon, as well as a Hyper Voice. But yeah, if that was just a double attack from Leo's side, like Hyper Voice and Dyroclaw or CC, then that could have been disastrous for Shane. So Leo's cautious play with the double Protect, of course, Leo doesn't really lose anything, but they also don't really gain too much ground. And now that just means one less turn of Tailwind. Of course, Fake Out no longer an option here, but now Shane could just go for the same thing and just double protect, stall out another turn, and there's not really too much that Leo could do, so maybe a little bit of a passive play here coming out by Leo means that they will not be able to utilize their Tailwind turns to the maximum.
Exactly, that just created a window for Shane to just do the same exact thing as we see here. The Sneasler is going for that Protect, and do we see the same Protect coming up from the Premier Arena? Yes, we do. So it's just an imitation play. You open this window for me to drag out the Tailwind turns, and here we are. So there's only just going to be one more turn of Tailwind left after this turn, and I feel like exactly, you said it best. Leo just opened up a moment just to slow the game down when they already had the momentum in the form of that Tailwind. So yeah, this game has just slowed down completely, and that offensive momentum that was there since turn 1 has just, it's almost vanished at this point.
Well, there is still one last turn of Tailwind, and the benefit that you have in Leo's side is now you kind of know that there will not be any more Protects coming out from Shane unless they would try to go for a double Protect. But that Ursaluna used Hyper Voice the previous turn, so it could be a Terra Normal Life Orb boosted Stab Blood Moon coming out into the Primarina slot. And I don't know the damage roll for sure here, but it could be a case where if that gets the KO, that could be a big play. But let's see first. Oh, Dark Claw gets the sleep!
We see the sleep on the Sneasler! Oh my goodness, not at this late of the stage, and we see the Blood Moon coming out, the Terra boosted Blood Moon, which is most likely gonna take out the Primarina, and it does!
Yeah,
oh my goodness!
Turn for Leo, gets the KO on the Primarina, and also with that Sleep Sneasler over on Shane's side will not be able to move, and yeah, just as we were saying, the situation looked kind of like maybe it slipped out of Leo's hands. He really utilizes that very last turn of Tailwind to the absolute best, getting the knockout on the Primarina, and also, yeah, with the Direct Claw, I mean, yeah, that's the game you play when a Sneasler is involved, but of course the perfect timing for this sleep condition.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when it comes into any competition of mind games, you also take into the factor of, do I want to gamble on the likelihood of something happening, or do I just want to play the safe route? And right here, Leo gambled on that Dire Claw. You know, I just hope that, you know, something does affect that Sneasler onto the other side that will favor me more. And it did happen. It paid off just as much as it could have also been possible for the Primarina to try and go for the double Protect. But in terms of the gambling situation here, Leo does get a good payout as we see the switch out onto the Indeedee, probably just trying to get rid of any major Grassy Glide damage onto that Ursaluna.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Sneasler's still asleep now. Tailwind is over. This High Horsepower doing a ton of damage to that Indeedee with a critical hit, but it will hang on with the Focus Sash. But crucially, that Ursaluna did not protect and will just go for a big Hyper Voice. Another big play from Leo, and it looks like at this point, yeah, Leo just cannot get it wrong. Hyper Voice knocking out that Sneasler, and once again now it is that Soul Rillaboom, and just like in the very first game, I think that might be too steep of a mountain to climb. Of course you can still try, I mean it's a team game, you will try until your very last stand, but Expanding Force almost getting the knockout, but this Woodhammer now finally knocks out this Ursaluna Blood Moon, which has posed so many problems for Shane, but it's just a little too late.
Yeah, and you know, it just must be so disheartening as well to have brought the match this far, only to lose to something like a Dire Claw Sleep, and it must be really